Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Charlie Bengal Jr., the CEO of Remax Allegiance, and welcome to another edition of the Allegiance Way and the Daily Dose. My two guests this afternoon, we are super fortunate to have Ryan Conrad, the CEO of the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, on with us. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. Good afternoon.
Always good to see you. And our second guest is Nicholas Lago, who is the president of the board of the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. He's been active with the board for 32 years. He's been volunteering for about half that time and is also an agent with Century 21 New Millennium. I was remiss in mentioning that Ryan has been CEO of NVAR for almost 5 years, right? So happy 5th anniversary in this craziness, right?
I know, thank you.
And NVAR is one of the larger associations in the country with about 12,000 members, as we learned from Matt last week. So I want to start with both of you. Talk to me about, we all kind of have our opinions of the market and what we're all seeing. Tell me what you all are seeing. Ryan, let's start with you. Talk to me about the real estate market in general.
Sure. So the good news for March is, if you've seen the data, March was an incredibly strong month. Now, we think a lot of that had to do with everybody sort of rushing to the closing table, making sure they got their listings in. Plus, you had listings that were taken in January and February, or maybe earlier, that were now coming to close in March. But sales were up something like 14%. The average sales price was up pretty significantly. Sales volume was up significantly. Days on market was down. All really good signs. Now, of course, we're headed into April. We're almost done with April. I think we're going to start to see a shift in the data as we get the report. We usually get our report about the 10th day of the month. So by May 10th, we'll have the report of April. And we're definitely expecting a slowdown. The data that we're seeing, Bright MLS has been incredibly useful resource for us. Every day they send us an update that shows a couple of metrics, key metrics, like how many listings have moved to temp off, how many daily showings have there been. And we've seen a couple things. We've seen a drop in the number of showings, as you can imagine, with not wanting to do in-person showings. We've seen the moves to active under contracts and pendings down. So that's an indication of future activity. And so, but on the positive side, we've seen, and I'm just looking at some of my notes here, we've seen new listings are actually up over where they were in 2019. Even the temp off, move to temp off, we saw a huge spike in moves to temp off in mid to late March, but we've seen a slowdown in that as well. So that's kind of a good sign. And the number of closed transactions overall in the entire footprint are actually ahead of where we were in 2019. So it's kind of a mixed bag. We're looking forward to seeing what data comes out at the end of April.
Good. Nicholas, what comments do you have reference the real estate market? Whether your comments are from the position as the president of the board or as a practicing agent. You and I were chatting a minute ago about how you were able to get an offer through that perhaps wouldn't have gotten through a couple months ago, right?
That's correct. Well, thank you, first of all, for having us today, and I appreciate being on your show. I have the fortunate distinction of not only being an NVAR president, but also a working agent. I'm a working agent and also a broker of a property management company. So I actually see it from 3 different sides. The market is actually rather brisk still, but the key to it is that we've had to adapt. Everything has been an adaptation, both from the sellers and from the buyers. And as agents, it's a little slow in coming, but I've seen not only agencies, but agents starting to adapt. The days where we were just getting in the car and meeting someone are long gone. And if we do have to meet someone, they're going to go in a separate car. We're going to take the proper protocols. We're going to put on our booties and our gloves and our masks, and business can still go on. We just have to be more careful about it. I think the biggest thing that's happened, and we discussed this just a little bit earlier, is that we now have serious buyers and serious sellers that are there. They're not just testing the waters or testing the fields, but they are basically saying, I want to sell my home, I want to buy a home. So the agent has the unique position of knowing that they have a well-qualified buyer that's serious. They're not going to waste their time. But they also are going to be showing a lot less properties because they would have done a lot of their homework in advance. So that's how the market has shifted, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. I like that. And it's also forced many agents that have wanted to use better technology to finally do it, right? I've always wanted to use Matterport, but now I shall use Matterport because my competition is using Matterport. Brian Block is on, and I think both of you know Brian Block fairly well, right? He's asking, what's your and I think this is going to be for you, Nicholas, what's your anticipation of collections and property management and potential issues come early May? So how are your rents for April, and what do you expect next month?
Well, I was a little bit surprised because in the U.S.-wise, I heard that about a third of the renters weren't paying. Well, we manage a little over 450 properties. We're about 460 right now. Okay. And out of those, only 4 people did not pay.
Wow.
And which is remarkable. I was totally shocked. And basically the forms that NVAR put out helped me tremendously because I was basically just patching forms together. Mm-hmm. So I used those forms. They documented that they were not working. We put them on a plan that when this goes back to somewhat normal, if you will, that they will start paying that back. They know it's not a forgiveness. One landlord did say, well, if my tenants didn't pay, I may consider forgiving, but every landlord is going to be different.
Sure.
So I anticipate, though, the longer we go into it, the more those numbers will rise slightly. That's just normal. When people don't have the money to pay, they're going to choose. They're going to choose food or they're going to pay rent.
Right.
As long as the landlord knows that they're not being forgiven, but they're going to get it back at some point, whether it's an installment plan or a few months down the road, they have a little comfort to know that they have a little bit of protection. So the best thing to do is work with those tenants, communicate freely, communicate with your landlord, and make sure you're both on the same page.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice in general, right? Over-communicate for your real estate deals, over-communicate with your buyers, your sellers, your lenders, your title companies, tenants, et cetera. I was also shocked by that stat that about a third didn't pay. But then the second part of that was about a quarter of people don't pay rent on time every month anyway. And that, as somebody who's done property management for a while, that was more of a shock to me. I can't imagine a quarter of my agents not paying on time. I mean, I think that, I guess if you're in the multifamily apartment world, you're able to take those late payers easier than if you're just a single mom and pop landlord.
Correct. And, we're also, another thing that's kind of important is your numbers you're looking at are nationally. In this particular area, we do have a little bit of a blanket shelter around us.
Yeah.
The majority of our renters and majority of our tenants do have the ability to pay, and we don't have that kind of vacancy, that kind of late delinquency rate. We have, and a lot of the leases have very high late fees. And the purpose of late fees isn't for us to collect fees out of a tenant. The purpose of that is if you have a habitual renter that's continuously doing that, that's really for them. It's not good to be in an adversarial position with a tenant. At some point, tenant's going to be a buyer, and you want to work with them. But at the same token, you also want to let them know the rules. And I think those numbers will rise just slightly, but I don't think we're going to be drastically in where we are. We're a third, for example, in as far as the U.S. may be concerned.
Good. Good advice there. I had property management forms. Nicholas, you mentioned that a minute ago. NVAR came out with property management forms recently. Some folks that are watching or will watch later are members of NVAR. So we're speaking directly to you all. If you're not a member of NVAR, my usual small fine print speech to you is check with your local association or your broker and use the appropriate forms. Don't steal NVAR forms to try to match up with, a Florida contract. But anyway, can one of you all expand on what these new property management forms are for and how they've enhanced the business of your members?
Well, the part I could speak to is just the process. And then Nicholas, if you want to get into sort of the specifics of the forms, this is an example of how our board of directors and our staff teams have adjusted to this new normal and trying to be nimble, listening and communicating with all of our members, our 12,000 members throughout the region. And this started to crop up, this question about what options do property managers have to dealing with clients who may not be able to pay. And to our board's credit, to our staff's credit, our standard forms volunteer leaders credit, they got together very quickly and created 2 brand new forms that our board was quick to adopt. Our state association had adopted similar forms a week or so ago, and we had gotten feedback from our members that it just wasn't as helpful to them in our particular market. And that's usually the case. At NVAR, we adopt forms that are particular to our marketplace. And so our board was quick to act. And Nicholas, maybe you want to speak to the 2 forms and just kind of give an overview or a highlight of what those are.
Sure. First of all, our board actually took quick action, and as well as our standard forms committee and the legal team of NVAR. The thing I have to say is we're very, very fortunate that NVAR being so large that we are able to move rather, not only being large, we can still move rather quickly and make quick decisions. Our board being active also realized that there was a need for this. So the first thing that we developed, if you recall, was about a month ago, we did a COVID-19 addendum. It was incredibly comprehensive that basically said is we're not allowing this contract to go dead. We have parties that still want to buy, still want to sell, but they don't want to be penalized because of the delay in the process. Fast forward a month later, then now we have, as we talked about a few minutes ago, that we had some tenants that would have a financial issue. Well, we did not want multiple property managers to be making up forms, to become legal experts, if you will. We never want a realtor to be the legal authority in a transaction because that's not their job. That's not the hat they wear. So due to many, many questions, the legal department started developing a form, a little bit of an offshoot from ideas that we shared with one another. They asked me for a lot of opinions because I have a large property management company. They asked other property managers. And we developed a form that allows basically the landlords to have a notice, if you will, on this property management lease. Not an addendum, because we're not trying to amend this lease, but we're putting a notice of saying, hey, listen, we know that you're not going to pay, but we want it documented saying, if you're going to pay, here's when we expect it. And the other nice part about the form is there is a format in that form that says, let's say this goes on a little bit longer. Well, we can just amend it by making a second form to that and extending those time periods. So it doesn't lock us into a particular date, but it gives us a guideline to say, how is the landlord going to recoup their money? How is the tenant expected to pay their money? And how is the process going to move forward once the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted? And let's face it, they will be lifted. It's not a forever thing. We just hope it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Awesome.
And it also preserved, Nicholas, right? Didn't it also preserve the right of the landlord to take any appropriate actions in the courts? You know, it preserves their existing rights. It doesn't necessarily waive or give up any of their rights. Their ability to take a tenant to court if they needed to, after all said and done.
That is correct. And that's a very good point, Ryan. Thank you for bringing that up, because the money that has been taken or being waived or being forgiven for the time being is done with reservation. Okay. And what that's a very important consideration in property management, because that says we're doing this with reservation, but that gives the landlord the right to go to court once the courts open up. Because let's face it, right now the courts are closed. The tenants know that you cannot go to get an eviction immediately. But once the courts open, that leaves that option to the landlord. If that tenant is not following the terms of what we agreed upon, then they can go ahead and move forward in getting their property back so they can get, income generating again.
Got it. Very good. Ryan, talk to me about advocacy and how important that's been.
Sure. Yeah. So advocacy is, as you know, is a critical part of what we as an association do on behalf of our members, on behalf of realtors and real estate professionals in the region. And it couldn't have meant more than in the last 2 months, if ever before, because of our advocacy, because of the relationships we've built up with elected officials over the years, because of our ability to get candidates elected to office that understand real estate industry, understand the unique needs and concerns of real estate consumers through RPAC. It really has worked to our advantage in the last few months. And one in particular that stands out to me, we've been working at the local, state, and federal level in terms of advocacy, working with our realtor member volunteers and our staff. One that stands out to me is obviously in the federal stimulus bill, it included for the first time ever unemployment benefits for independent contractors. You've never seen that before. It's never happened before. And we're at the table at the national level working with members of Congress and the Senate and the president to make sure that can happen. Among the other benefits that are now available to small businesses, PPP, and some of the other things. So that was a huge win for us. But even if you take it to the state and local level, on the local level, we worked with the county clerk's offices in Fairfax and Arlington to make sure that they stayed operational so that they could record deeds so that the transactions didn't stop. We had a direct line to the county clerks in each of the counties. encouraging them, giving them the perspective of the real estate industry. And even at the state level, we were at the table very early on with the governor, making sure that real estate wasn't shut down. And we were fortunate in Virginia that, some of our neighboring states have really cracked down hard and said, no, you can't show a house, you can't do real estate, you can't close a transaction. We've been really lucky in Virginia, and that's largely because of our advocacy and because of our relationships we've built up over the years. So if there's nothing else that comes of this, among other things, it's how important advocacy is on behalf of our industry and on behalf of consumers, and being a part of that as a realtor member of the association.
Nicholas, do you have anything to add to that?
I actually do. There's the advocacy not only trickles down to what NVAR is doing, but what our members are doing. We have a very strong RPAC participation. So that RPAC dollars go to work for us in many, many ways, but mostly for us is to have a very good pulse on what's happening within the government, but also be an influence. And then we're trying to trickle all that advocacy down to the brokers and the agents. So we've been very diligent about making 2 to 3 communications per week coming out of NVAR to keep not only our members informed, but we've also been doing direct communication to brokers. We need to empower those brokers to trickle it down to their agents as well. Very similar to what you're doing. What you're doing as a show like this is critical. We can't thank you enough for even doing that and inviting us, because that's the best way we can get the word out. If a tree falls in the wood and nobody hears it, then no one's going to know it fell. But in this particular case, if we bring the woods to them, then they're going to know what's happening. And so that advocacy trickles down in many, many different factors. And it's very, very important that we're involved.
I appreciate that.
Nicholas brings up a point about resources available through the association and working with members. We've really tried to focus during this whole COVID-19 thing on making sure we're providing relevant, credible, primary source, valuable information to our realtor members. There's so much information out there. You don't know what you can trust or what you can believe. So we're really trying to do the best we can. And we've created a resource page, a COVID-19 resource page you can get right from our NVAR.com website, but it's constantly updated. We're sending out emails on a regular basis. We're doing these kinds of webinars because we know it's important for all our realtors out there to have the best information possible. So, that kind of ties into what you were saying, Nicholas, about getting the information out there. So thank you, as Nicholas said, Charlie, for giving us the chance to share some information.
No, thank you. And for our people listening or watching, if you ever are confused about what your dues pay for or what your RPAC contribution goes towards, right? This is it, right? And it's not just the crises, it's the everyday advocacy that all 3 associations that we pay dues to work hard to fulfill. So I appreciate you all sharing that. Ryan, what's NVAR have coming up? You guys used to do tons of events in person. I know you pivoted like we did, almost like on a dime, and now it's all virtual. But I know you've got good stuff coming up. Why don't you share a little bit?
We do, and you bring up a good point. The question about, if you wonder what your dues go towards and things like that. The one thing I'll tell you about NVAR in terms of our staffing, we are 100% and fully operational right now in a remote environment. Anything that a member needs or that we can provide assistance for, we're available. They can get somebody on our staff team to help them. We have modified office hours on Fridays. So if there's any lockbox challenges that they need hands-on work, we've set up appointments on Fridays. Our staff team uses all the safety protocols, and so they can drive up. We can fix their lockbox or do a purchase. We've also waived shipping fees on all the products that our members offer or order from our store, and we're shipping out products on a regular basis. So we're there to meet the needs of our members, and we've shifted everything virtually in terms of programming and CE and continuing education and post-licensing, things like that. So if you've looked at our schedule the next couple of weeks, our calendar on our website, we've got a ton of continuing education that's being held virtually, and it's getting great traction. We've got great instructors that have adjusted and are being nimble as well. But we also have a couple of really neat kind of valuable events coming up. We usually have a spring summit, and that's sort of our finance summit and legal summit combined. We actually have now broken that up into a series of a couple of programs. And for instance, on April 29th, we have a legislative update where we're going to have Delegate Marcus Simon, who many of you know is also in the title business, and Delegate David Bulova. We also have a really valuable economic update coming up on April 30th. and it's going to feature three economists: Dr. Lawrence Yun from the National Association of Realtors, Dr. Terry Clower of George Mason University Center for Regional Analysis, and Dr. Lisa Sturdivant, who is the Virginia Association of Realtors chief economist. So we were able to get all three of them. We're really excited about that, each bringing their unique perspective, and they're all tracking different kinds of data that they're going to be able to share with you. For instance, VAR is doing a weekly pulse survey. Some of you may participate in it,
right.
And it's showing what's happening this week in terms of the effect of COVID-19. Dr. Clower is doing similar, but kind of different. So that's coming up on April 30th from 11 to noon. And then there is a really great small broker. It's brought to you by our small broker forum, but it's really applicable to any brokers or independent contractors. It's 5 strategies to become a powerful speaker and effective storyteller. We've got a nationally recognized speaker, DC-based news correspondent, Bafta Imam. She's an international speaker and an executive coach. So there's a lot of stuff, and I can rattle them all off, but the easiest thing to do is just go to NVAR.com, click on the COVID-19 banner at the top, and look at all the virtual sessions coming up. But I think the takeaway is we want you to know that there's plenty of great content and resources out there for you through your association. It's just a matter of checking out our website. We send out 2 emails a week. Scan through them. We now have text message capability. So if you want to sign up for that, we can send you a quick message. We're doing a once a week text message with relevant information. We're on Amazon Alexa. Just ask Alexa, hey, Alexa, open Northern Virginia Realtors. So we're really trying to be where our members are. Of course, we're on social media as well.
Oh, awesome. So and this is to you, Nicholas, if people want to get involved, some listeners and viewers may remember that a very long time ago, I was a VAR director. I was an NAR director for a large firm. This was like a decade ago. And now I joke with people that I'm retired, which is probably an unfair statement since you've been volunteering for 6 years, Nicholas. So if folks want to get more involved with the association, where can they start?
That's an excellent question, because we're going to be coming up very quickly for next year's committee appointments. Won't be that long. This year we had maybe over 225, 230 people apply for committees, which was a record for us. And the goal for myself and the president-elect Derek Swak was to make sure that we got every single person that wanted to volunteer, either their first or second choice, and get them involved.
Oh, good. Okay.
That is really, really important. I actually remember serving with you, actually. So thank you for that service. And it's invaluable to people that do get involved, because a lot of people will say, oh, what somebody's doing, what are you guys doing for us? Well, once you get involved, you will see the plethora of information and all that each committee does. We ended up opening 5 or 6 more committees up this year. We have an ambassador program. So if you want to get involved, go to the NVAR website, look up the committee forums. You can see which committee is of interest to you. Obviously, if you've never served and you want to go right to professional standards, that's not realistic, because you need to have a little bit of experience behind it. But there's so many committees, from technology to standard forms, to ethics, to grievance, to the CARES committee. It is unbelievable the amount of information there. And those committees then indirectly, once you're on there, then will feed that and give ideas to the board of directors, and then the board of directors approve any kind of recommendations that they may make for us. So I do urge them to get involved. Call me, email us, email Ryan, anyone that we will help you get the information and help you filter it. But if you don't get involved, you're not part of the process. And more importantly is, when I step down, and I joke about that I'll be down on a little pasture on Route 50 somewhere with the other past presidents,
right.
I want to continue to be involved. But more importantly, we're looking out for our next leaders. They're going to come through and continue to feed that stream of realtor participation, because NVAR really is about the members. It isn't about me. It isn't about me getting a little badge that says I was the president. It's about what we do to help our members. I don't do this for my health. I do this because I want to give back to my realtor community. And so do get involved. And it's a fantastic entree for you to do that for us. I really appreciate that.
Very good. Ryan, do you know what mid-year is going to look like? Are they taking it online? Will there be programs for agents that want to participate? Maybe talk about what mid-year is. I know we have some agents that used to go to DC and participate either at a committee level, or there were some classes and whatnot. So I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but
that's okay.
Any comments there?
Yeah, so mid-year is going completely virtual. It will not be held in person in Washington, D.C. So mid-year is the National Association of Realtors set of meetings. It's a conference and expo and set of governance meetings and also professional development opportunities. They do two big meetings a year. They do one in May, which they call mid-year, and that's hosted in D.C. Downtown, and then they do another one in November. That's the annual meeting. So it's completely virtual. They just posted the schedule late last week. It's going to be virtual committee meetings, virtual sessions. They're still having a really great lineup of speakers.
Okay.
And there is no cost to participate, so any member can go and sign up. Now, I can't remember the name of the website offhand. It's something, just Google mid-year legislative meetings and you'll find it. But I do encourage as many members to sign up. Now, when it is in person, that it's such a great thing for us in this Northern Virginia region to have in our backyard. We're almost spoiled by the fact that we can just drive into downtown, participate in this great trade show, which has hundreds of vendors, all these sessions, all these committee meetings, and so we always work with NAR to try and promote that. But one of the neat things that we're going to do this year, from an NVAR standpoint, and this is actually open up even to any of your audience members. Every year at mid-year for the last 6 years, we've done what we call a showcase of innovative ideas and concepts events. Knowing that there's about 10 or 15,000 realtors showing up in DC, and we're only about 15, 19 miles from DC, NVAR's headquarters, we actually get a couple of buses together. We invite the CEOs and the presidents of the associations from across the country, and we invite them to come to our building, take a tour, because it's a beautiful LEED Gold certified building built in 2011. And we're doing a lot of innovative stuff, and we want to share our ideas. And each year for the last several years, we've had over 100 guests. This year, we're actually going to do it virtually. And this is going to be open to any AE or president across the country. And the other thing that we're doing different about it is it's not only just for the president and the CEO. We're actually going to do something for our entire membership at NVR, and we're going to open it up to all of our volunteer leaders. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Oh, nice. Very good. Wrapping it up, just a few more minutes left. Any closing thoughts from either of you?
I would, if you don't mind, I'd like to take this one first, Ryan.
Go for it.
I keep saying this, and maybe Ryan's going to get tired of me saying it, but we're now going through social distancing. I cannot urge realtors enough not to be socially distant. This is the most opportune time you have to capture your clients. Your clients are at home. Most of them are stay home. So why not pick up the phone? You don't have to talk about real estate. See how they're doing. How's their health? How are you doing? That is the number one thing you do, is reconnect with your clients. Just because we are virtual right now does not mean we cannot stay in touch. And that is the number one rule of real estate, is stay in touch. Stay in touch. When all else fails, stay in touch. So this is a great opportunity for you to get your thank you notes out, to get your hello notes out, to make your phone calls, to build your database. When we go back to business in terms of our normal way, if you will, it may require masks, but we'll still be in touch with those people in a face-to-face. You want to be sure that you are positioned and you are ready to go. Plant those seeds now and be active. And that includes with your fellow realtors as well. Get your learning in, get your continuing education in, be active. This is the time for you to continue to do all that.
For those watching that think that I put Nicholas up to that, because they've been hearing that from me for weeks now. This is the easiest time to pick up the phone. People are bored at home. They will answer the phone. They want to talk to you, right? And we need to be taking advantage of that. And I always say that when there's events like this or holidays, when the phone is lighter, right, we want to make more calls. And right now the phone is light, right? There's no reason not to pick up the phone. So you said it better than I could, and I appreciate you saying that. Ryan, closing thoughts from you.
Yeah, just one tool I'll point out for everybody, a resource, right? It's NAR's Right Tools Right Now resource, where NAR has basically offered dozens and dozens of programs and classes and professional development opportunities at no cost. They waive the fee. So it's a great time to invest in that. But what I'll leave you with is number one, just know that NVAR is open for business. We're open virtually. We're online for business. We're 100% operational. We're going to continue to advocate on behalf of our members and consumers to make sure that the business can continue to thrive. And know that we're here to listen, and we're communicating as best we can. So let us know what's on your mind, and let us know how we can help.
Appreciate that. Ryan, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show. Nicholas, for those of watching that don't understand, being the president of a large association, it's like having a second full-time job. You're a volunteer. I want you to know that I appreciate you, and I appreciate you on behalf of all of our associates here at RE/MAX Allegiance. It's a pleasure, and thanks again to both of you for coming on the show today.
Thank
for
you
having
very
us.
much.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Charlie.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.